West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Joining me now is MSNBC political contributor Mark Leibovich, author of the newly released book, Thank You for Your Servitude, Donald Trump's Washington and the Price of Submission. Also joining is host of the Justice Matters podcast, former federal prosecutor and MSNBC legal analyst Glenn Kirshner, and NBC News Washington correspondent and moderator of Washington Week on PBS, Yamiche Alcindor. Thank you all very much for being here. Mark, I'm going to start with you. Let's get into your book. Why do Republicans tolerate Trump?
You know, it's a combination of things, Jonathan. It's just inertia, it's fear, it's expediency, it's politics, and basically you hear all these stories sort of around the margins about, is Donald Trump losing his grip on the Republican Party? And yeah, I mean, maybe people are a little exhausted by him, but in doing the research for this book and in talking to Republicans and in watching the reaction to January 6th, I mean, it's still basically silence. I mean, there haven't been really, with some very notable and some, I think, very courageous exceptions, there haven't been that many Republicans at all, leading Republicans, putative leaders of the Republican Party, who have stood up and said, this is wrong. It's just been this conspicuous silence. And that's been the MO from the party from the last 7 years. So I don't think anything is changing. And what I try to do in writing Thank You for Your Servitude is basically just tell the story of how the GOP descended into Trump land through the perspective of these enablers. And that's sort of what the Republican Party has become, an enabler party of Donald Trump. And again, I don't see that changing anytime soon.
You know, one of my mantras has been, to my mind, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump runs again in 24, because Trumpism is abroad in the land. And I'm wondering, Mark, if you'd agree with what Congressman Adam Kinzinger said in a Washington Post interview out today. He said, quote, Trump is like a cancer of the liver. Now we have cancer in the whole body. And the next person that can mimic Trump can still pull his magic tricks, he said. We've got to stand up against this. Mark, the question is, will they?
Well, I mean, here's the object lesson here. I mean, Kinzinger is not the first Republican ever to compare Donald Trump to cancer, okay? Rick Perry, who was running against him in 2015, compared him to a fatal cancer on the face of conservatism. Rick Perry then sort of came around and became the energy secretary under Donald Trump. A bunch of people actually made the same comparison. Adam Kinzinger is a very, very conspicuous exception in that he has actually now fighting against the cancer and what he is deemed to be the cancer. So, yeah, I mean, again, he is not the first to make this observation, and the cancer has grown by all accounts. But what's happened is you just haven't seen that many people stand up. You know, even again, beginning with these hearings, beginning after, say, Kevin McCarthy went down to Mar-a-Lago on January 28th, 2021. I mean, it's just been a lot of submission. And yes, Ron DeSantis might get some good, play in polls and so forth. But I don't see people sort of, rallying around a Stop Trump movement inside the Republican Party. And I do think that the Republicans are going to have to be really the first line of defense against Donald Trump in 2024, if and when he runs again. And I don't see that happening.
Mm-hmm. Glenn, let me bring you in here. Steve Bannon was on Fox News Friday, and he doesn't seem to be worried about anything. Listen.
If I go to jail, I go to jail. I will never back off a second. Look, I spent 8 years as a naval officer. I've committed my life to this program to get this done. I will never back off. I support Trump and the Constitution, and I'm not backing off 1 inch. If I go to jail, so be it.
Glenn, I support Trump and the Constitution. Isn't that contradictory?
Yeah, you can support both. That's pretty clear. And you know what? I'm going to suggest, Jonathan, that Steve Bannon has good reason to be bold and brash. Yes, he's been convicted of a misdemeanor, a really consequential misdemeanor, willfully defying congressional subpoenas designed to expose Donald Trump's crimes. So it was clear Steve Bannon wanted to hide, bury, secrete evidence of Donald Trump's crimes. Why? Well, in part, it was a little bit of, doing a solid to Trump after Trump pardoned Steve Bannon for stealing from Trump's base with the bogus We Build a Wall Foundation. But here's the thing. I am really thrilled that we've seen some slightly more forward-leaning statements from A.G. Garland and Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco about how no person is above the law, and they will prosecute everyone if the evidence supports a prosecution. He didn't come right out and say, including a former president, but you didn't have to read between the lines to receive that message. But here's the problem. The Department of Justice continues to say, well, we will follow the facts and follow the law wherever. Well, no, that's not the only law enforcement response when our democracy is on fire. Sometimes we have to take prompt, overt law enforcement action. When? Like when witnesses are tampered with. We don't just in a leisurely manner follow the facts and follow the law. We apply for an arrest warrant and we arrest the person who has tampered with the witness. Why? Because one, we neutralize that threat. And even more importantly, we deter others on Team Trump from tampering with witnesses. But we continue to see zero overt law enforcement action. And what does that do? It emboldens the Steve Bannons and the Mark Meadows of the world. And, when your democracy is on fire, you don't spend a lot of time inspecting the fire hoses for leaks. You turn that sucker on full blast and you try to put out the fire. And the people who are most at risk, some of them, Jonathan, are Trump's own supporters, because he's still out there pushing the big lie and urging perhaps a second batch of insurrectionists to act based on his lies. Our current government has to grab hold of this now with overt law enforcement action.
Well, Glenn, there's a big Washington Post story today that highlights the 15 times Trump intentionally escalated his angry mob, which included putting a target on Mike Pence's back. I'm wondering, might any of these rise to the level of criminality?
We play this parlor game. We've been playing it for years, Jonathan. Is what Donald Trump just did a crime? And the answer is, if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear it, does it make a sound? Well, if Trump commits crimes and there's nobody there to indict him, is it really a crime? Does it really matter? What all of these things are, Jonathan, they're either crimes on their own, standalone crimes that could be brought, like inciting an insurrection or obstructing an official proceeding, but everything else he has done feeds into the overall conspiracy to defraud or commit offenses against the United States that a federal judge already found by a preponderance of the evidence, Judge David Carter, that Trump and John Eastman committed together. So, again, it's time for overt law enforcement action.
Yamiche, you are there on the north lawn of the White House on Pebble Beach. We've been talking about the silence among Republicans, both to what Donald Trump has done to the party, but also the silence of Republicans in terms of their reaction to the 8 hearings of the January 6th Select Committee. But there's another interesting bit of silence that just occurred to me. We have not heard word boo from the White House about anything related to the January 6th hearings, and that is by design, isn't it?
Well, the White House really has been, well, they will say that they've been very crystal clear in that they think that January 6th was one of the darkest days in our democracy and in the history of America. President Biden has come out and said that he will do everything that he could possibly do to sort of move this investigation along. They've waived executive privilege on some documents that former President Trump didn't want produced. But it is in some ways, I guess, striking that the White House hasn't said anything, but that's also because they want to give real space to Congress to really prosecute this case, and they also want Attorney General Merrick Garland to be as more independent than Bill Barr. This is President Biden, who ran on the idea that he wanted to make sure that the DOJ didn't feel like they were having to be his personal attorneys, which is what a lot of people thought the DOJ was doing under the reign of his, or under the tenure of his last predecessor. So I think what you have here is the White House juggling a lot of challenges. The president, of course, having COVID, the inflation issues, all of the different things that they're dealing with, abortion politics, and they're saying January 6th and all of the things that happened there, we're leaving that to Congress and this committee that is clearly digging in deep here and taking their work very, very seriously.
Hey, Mark, do you think that that's a good move by the White House to give that distance, to remain silent, if you will, to not have reacted to every hearing that the January 6th Select Committee has put on as part of the effort to lend it legitimacy and not get drawn into the argument that this is a witch hunt, show trial, whatever derogatory thing Trump and his people say about it?
Yeah, you wouldn't expect the White House to get involved in this in a public way at all. I think probably more important than letting Congress do its work, and clearly the January 6th committee has done a lot of work and will continue to, and I think their credibility stands on its own. I think it's the Justice Department. I think Merrick Garland would not react well to any kind of White House sort of public statement on this. I think President Biden has made it clear that that's not what he's going to be doing here. However, I think there's a larger point here, and again, this was sort of an overwhelming point I heard made in researching the book, which is that for as risk averse as Republicans are about doing anything that would trigger Donald Trump, Democrats have also become somewhat risk averse, I think, in confronting Trump. I think that's one of the reasons Joe Biden was nominated by the party in 2020. People were looking for the most electable candidate, and I think that Democrats look like they might be on track to doing the same thing again, for lack of any alternative. But I mean, look, I do think that the White House is absolutely right and probably not at all surprised to be taking a arm's length perspective on whatever the Justice Department is doing.
It is Monday, the 25th of July of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. Because, well, you know what happens after the weekend. Yeah, you do. We take what's left over and we make it into a lovely gourmet dish for your gourmand delight. Indeed. A lot of places are closed on Mondays, but I always like the idea of staying open to, well, maybe feed those that are in the industry. Yeah, we used to do that a lot. Well, we have a different kind of salon here these days. Food for thought. That's right. And we also imbibe in a cocktail or two as well. Hey, how are you doing? We survived the weekend, not because of any gross political act, though there's a lot of them out there, but there seems to be a heat wave going on. Did you know? Yeah. Out here in the West, and in Rogue River specifically, if you go on to the Rogue River Town Facebook page, which isn't run by the town, but because the town Facebook page it's a placemat. It doesn't do anything. But there is one here in town that most people go to. It's sort of like our next door, which means it's a cesspool. But anyway, if you go on to the Rogue River Town Facebook page and mention that this climate change is happening, they'll take the post away for being political. And I'm like, it's not political, it's environmental. So any number of people will put up, posts that are, against saving the spotted owl, and that will stay up. Apparently that's not political. It's only political if a liberal disagrees with them. And, so that means that they are the victims and they have to have civil war. I've been hearing a lot more about civil war from these maggots, including my maggot brother. So they're getting their marching orders, and they have the little thing in their brain. All they need is a few triggers, like maybe blank copies of Catcher in the Rye. Maybe that's the trigger. I doubt it. They don't even know what Catcher in the Rye is. They couldn't use that as some sort of modeling hypnotic device. Nope. Got to be something else. I wonder what it would be. Probably, I don't know, a TV show that they liked. Maybe. Anyway, with Cars, the Dixie Swastika, I'm pretty sure it's going to be one of those shows. Anyway, a lot more noise, chatter, as we say, about civil war. And apparently, according to them, we are going to start it. Really? Because we're the ones that are the new book burners? Where did they get that? We are the book burners? We're not the ones outlawing books. God, we're not the ones that are arresting teachers. We're teaching with books. My God. But it works on their ignorant, deplorable base. Yeah, I've also been getting a lot more explanations for anything that might happen, as it's all Antifa. You can tell when a maggot is a maggot because I blame everything now on Antifa. Heat dome, Antifa. Dog pooped in the middle of the yard, Antifa taught him to do it. It's never ending, and you think they're joking, but they're not. They're not. And now they're talking about violent civil war. Brother killing brother. Boy, that's something to look forward to, huh? Well, I don't know. I guess I better be prepared. I had no idea that he had such psychological issues with me being the older brother. I know the baby brother always needs to outperform. Well, that's fine. I like to perform within the construct of a moral code. Other people, you got to have a moral code to break, right? Some people don't have a moral code, so they never break a moral code. No, I don't know. How does it happen? Peer pressure, maybe, huh? Parents, if your little kid is out there running around with fascists, maybe you ought to, choose his friends a little better, huh? I know, kids choose their friends, but the parents could be a little bit more active in the friends they choose. All right. Well, so we got that going for us. Fair warning, all this heat that we're feeling right now, a lot of us back in the day were saying, we ought to start moving away from fossil fuels. Look what happened to the whale industry. They looked at us and said, what the hell are you talking about, Moby Dick? And we said, look, we got to think about this planet that we're living on. It will endure, but we will not if we keep it up. And we've kept it up, and here we are. And now I got to hear about people whining because their insurance rates are going to go up because we've been rezoned in, the wildland fire danger area now. How nice, huh? The whole town. Now, if I'm sure that, I've talked with some insurance agents. I need to talk to mine. I'm sure that in town rates won't go up as steep. If you're out in the, in that buffer, your rates will go up. I'm only saying this because we were all warned, and I'm not going to whine about it now, except I got to hear a bunch of whiners who denied, and now it's upon us, and they're saying, oh, this is such a terrible law. How dare they? They're dictators. Yeah, Antifa did it. All right. Jesus. So what do? Do we ignore them? I say we just steamroll right over them. We are America. We don't listen to Nazis. Why are we letting the Nazis goose step all over us? And if we say simply, like, we got to punch the Nazis, and everybody goes, not everybody, but people go, oh, you're so violent. Well, there's different ways, and I'll mention it again. There are different ways to punch the Nazis. I like what they did to Metzger. They punched him in the wallet. That's one way to punch the Nazis. But if we don't punch the Nazis in some fashion, they're going to crystal knock our ass, and they are doing it now. They are emboldened, and they're going to blame us. And they're going to point to some sort of, violent act, and that'll be the catalyst. A Reichstag fire that they started. But they're going to point to it. But it won't take even that. It'll take simply disagreeing with them and saying no. No more. That is all it will take. Secret Service says, we're not coming to testify. Yes, you are. Arrest their motherfucking, excuse my French, but I'm getting angry about this. The Secret Service, they're not known as the SS for nothing, apparently, huh? Nope. Those three need to be arrested and held because they are flight risks. They need to be held until the DOJ figures out what to do with them. Are they going to testify in front of Congress first before their criminal indictment? They can always videotape it from the cell. It's time now to set our foot down, foot, and stop this BS that is happening from these Nazis. I read also that, people were throwing the word Nazi around just indiscriminately. I got to tell you, no, we weren't. Took us decades to finally call them what they are. And I got to tell you, I didn't do it until people I respected in academe it was anathema to use Nazi in an argument. You don't do it. You defeat yourself every time you use that term. That's how many times did I hear that over the decades. Don't tell me we rushed into calling these Nazis Nazis. It took us quite a while to finally call them what they are. I know. People will say, well, it's not an assault rifle. It's not a military assault rifle. An assault rifle is fully automatic. Yeah, well, these are American Nazis. I don't know if you want to call them fully automatic Nazis. But they sure are semi-automatic Nazis, aren't they? Just keep pulling the trigger. Give me a break. And I'll just say it once again. Time to set our foot down. And it stops. Time to haul Jenny Thomas into the hearing. Subpoena her ass. These Secret Service agents who are defying subpoenas, they're not going to testify. They illegally erased tapes on the day before and of the insurrection. And they're not going to come and testify under a criminal... Hey, no. Merrick, hold them. What are they going to do? Shoot it out? They're going to do a Ruby Ridge? Let's go for it then. They can go to South Dakota Indian reservations and kill a bunch of people and hold people for decades. They can go after these 3 Secret Service agents for trying to overthrow the United States of America. And there better be a rat hunt through the DHS, through the DOJ, through the FBI, whatever government agency there is, there needs to be a rat hunt, and we need to root out all of these maggots. They are not part of our body politic. They are there to destroy it. We're going to let them play with democracy? No, they want to destroy it. We allow that in a democracy? Oh, well, even the people who want to destroy it should have a voice. No, that's not how a democracy works. They don't get to be part of the game. Never stopped them from keeping other people out of the game under onerous circumstances, and we have a legit one now. Would it be unseemly? Too bad. Time to get tough. Oh, it might cause a civil war. We're already in one. It stopped being an insurrection on the day of the insurgency when electeds started getting involved, not only in the active part of it, but also in the legislative part of it. And here we are with a maggot SCOTUS telling women that they should die. Just die. They get to have a part of democracy? They get a voice? Boy, yeah, just try stopping them having a voice. But they don't get to be part of our politics anymore. They're not a legitimate party. They can't run candidates. It's as simple as that. And we need, once again, to get a rat hunt. Wherever there's maggot Nazis trying to destroy America, we need to root them out. It's not like Trump didn't decimate all of our government. Reality Winner was thrown in jail for 5 years as a spy, apparently, for discovering that the Russians helped Trump win. And they suppressed that by throwing her ass in jail. Anybody who was investigating Russia in any capacity had nothing to do with even Trump. Nothing, just investigating Russia, were fired. Whole departments were decimated and discontinued in the intelligence and law enforcement. Look what happened to our ambassadorships. Look what happened to the State Department. Carcasses. Because we're supposed to allow that as part of a democracy? A group of people whose prime directive is to destroy democracy? Oh, I vote to destroy democracy. Oh, well, is that how democracy works? No. No, you don't vote to destroy democracy. It's not allowed. I guess I'm a romantic, huh? I guess so. Well, we do have a curated part of the show, as a romantic would do. And we do. And what is in the curated part of the show? Well, at the top, yes, despite the warnings from Liz Cheney, all signs point to Republicans standing by Trump as he hints at running for president again. I don't think those are hints. It's bullhorning. Bullhorning? Well, works for me. On the rest of the menu in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, energy experts say the Republican outrage over petroleum reserve sales is overblown. Well, we've been saying that for quite a while. GOP Representative Ted Budd of North Carolina got big bucks for opposing consumer protections against predatory lending, despite his own state prohibiting the practice. And the FBI says it busted a big crypto Ponzi scam, but then they discovered it was even bigger. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Japan's nuclear regulator approved a planned release of treated radioactive wastewater from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant into the sea next year. And China launched one of 2 laboratory modules to complete its permanent orbiting space station. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Monday rants get fairly extended, including this one, so we are going to forego the usuals at this point in the show, and we'll pick it up tomorrow. Just give you a few tidbits of information and inform you about how we pay our bills around here. But anyway, we are going to tuck into this first offering in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. It is out of the American Independent by Adrian Cole. Several high-ranking Republicans have criticized Biden administration for releasing oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve internationally, despite the fact that it has been a common practice under both Democratic and Republican administrations forever. Last week, Ted Cruz sponsored a bill called the No Emergency Crude Oil for Foreign Adversaries Act that would prevent the Biden administration from selling crude oil to certain foreign countries, including China. The bill was co-sponsored by James Inhofe, Marsha Blackburn, Josh Hawley, Joni Ernst, James Lankford, John Kennedy, that fool from Louisiana, and Roger Marshall. He's out of Kansas. At a time of skyrocketing inflation and record gas prices with the SPR drained to its low level since '86, it is reckless and inexplicable that President Biden would allow oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to be exported to China. But Cruz said in a statement to the right-wing website Breitbart, "This practice poses a direct threat to American national security, not at least at all because the Chinese Communist Party is currently stockpiling oil for strategic use, and the Biden administration is aiding that effort." Really? Well, the Department of Energy sometimes sells crude from the SPR to the free market in an attempt to alleviate global supply problems caused by wars, natural disasters, and other circumstances. The federal agency does this through its crude oil sales program, in which only registered companies can bid. The Biden administration began releasing oil from the reserve onto the global market in April, the largest of its kind in history, in an attempt to compensate for the supply disruption caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Russia provides about 1/6 of the global supply of oil and gas. Now, the most recent complaint surfaced after a July 6 Reuters story noted that cargoes of SPR crude were also headed to the Netherlands and to a Reliance refinery in India, as well as a third cargo headed to China. Following the Reuters report, the right-wing Washington Free Beacon repeated the claim that the Biden administration was selling oil to China, and even suggested that sales were part of a nefarious plot to enrich the Biden family through their ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Wait a second. Ivanka's getting trademarks to this very day on voting machines and all other sorts of things. So please. Well, one energy expert did sum up the imbroglio this way. The claims are cynical at best and expose a complete ignorance of how the Strategic Petroleum Reserve works. Here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays is also out of the American Independent, but this time by Josh Israel. North Carolina Republican Senate nominee Ted Budd has consistently sided with predatory lenders and the payday lending industry, even though payday lending is banned in his state. The industry has rewarded him with thousands of dollars in campaign contributions. Bud, currently serving his third term in the U.S. House of Representatives, is running against former North Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice Cherry Beasley, a Democrat, this November for the open seat of retiring Republican Senator Richard Burr. Oh, you know, the one who partied in Moscow? He calls himself a liberal agenda crusher who will work for everyday families, not the elite or political insiders. Really? Is that how you do it? I love how these people are making all these big bucks call us everyday working people the elites. But, you know, that's how your fascist playbook works, and I'm not kidding. Bud's record indicates otherwise. He has consistently supported lenders who prey on lower-income individuals using abusive repayment terms and exploitive tactics, practices that have been illegal in North Carolina for more than 20 years. You know, I remember usury rates were considered anything over 10%, 9%, you could get thrown in jail for charging too much interest. Yeah, 28 per annum now? Give me a break. Now, many financial services companies offer payday or cash advance loans, short-term loans carrying a high interest rate based on anticipated income coming on the borrower's next payday. Now, North Carolina is among the states that have cracked down on these practices. According to its Justice Department, North Carolina has some of the toughest laws against unfair loans in the nation and was the first to adopt a comprehensive law against predatory home loans. The state has prohibited payday loans since 2001, and state officials closed a loophole in 2006. Payday lending shops stopped operating in the state entirely. Republicans in D.C. have pushed to overrule those and other state regulations at the behest of the lending industry. A rule enacted at the end of 2020 by Trump's administration as he was on his way out allowed lenders to partner with banks from other states to avoid state restrictions. Well, just like a mob boss would do. In this reporter's opinion, okay? The Democratic majorities in the House and Senate overturned the Trump administration rule in 2021. Bud and almost every other Republican voted to keep it in place. Singletary of the Washington Post brings us this final offering here on the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We are in an age where investors are duped into believing they can become millionaires by sinking their money into cryptocurrency-related companies or platforms. Scammers are capitalizing on the crypto craze big time. Since the start of 2021, Americans have lost more than $1 billion, that's with a B, to cryptocurrency scams, nearly 60 times the losses reported in 2018, according to the Federal Trade Commission. A company called Amenifix claimed it had developed a proprietary trading system that would invest people's money in cryptocurrency and the foreign exchange markets, also known as Forex. When the Justice Department and Commodity Futures Trading Commission filed complaints against a suspected Ponzi scheme by the company, they believed the swindle amounted to $59 million. But that turned out to be a gross understatement. The Justice Department and the Commodity Futures Trading Commission alleged that Amnifix, owned by Eddie Alexander of New York, was a Ponzi-like scheme that promised participants guaranteed returns of at least 5% every week. Castleman said the investigation found that $250 million was collected from investors. That's a lot more than $59 million. All right, you can read the rest of the article at the show notes and links, which is on the Daily Co's Diary that I post 10 minutes before showtime. And you can find those show notes by following me at Justice Putnam on Twitter. So do that. All right, let's get to our break. And when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world. And we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. And we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, do crawdads sing? Whenever I check a certain review aggregator and see that 95% of an audience likes a movie, yet only 30% of reviewers, my curiosity is aroused. The movie adaptation of Delia Owens' 2018 novel Where the Crawdad Sings is such a movie, which poses questions about what ordinary moviegoers want compared with reviewers. The novel provides the bones of a decent movie. A young woman, Kaya, ends up mostly bringing herself up in the swamps of North Carolina after her family flees her abusive alcoholic father before the father abandons Kaya. The story is told in retrospect during a murder trial in which Kaya is the defendant after one of the two men with whom she's become involved turns up dead at the base of a fire tower. The problems start but don't end with the production design. It's way too clean and ridiculously obviously not filmed in North Carolina. Picture To Kill a Mockingbird, where everyone's dressed out of the J. Crew catalog, never perspires, or has a southern accent. And in the area of race relations, anyone who grew up in or near North Carolina during this era, the 60s, would be wondering if this one was filmed on Earth, given the interactions portrayed between the African-American and white characters. Daisy Edgar Jones gives a good performance as young adult Kaya, and David Strathairn kills it as her attorney, despite both working from an unremarkable script. The cinematography gives Where the Crawdads Sing a nice look. I suspect the mostly female readers of the novel taking this one in are probably happy with it, especially with the hunky male leads. As to singing crawdads, that's addressed in dialogue, but it represents a level of subtle metaphor not found anywhere else in this one. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at Take2MovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey, kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Republican politicos are all over Joe Biden for failing to stop inflation. Perhaps you wonder, though, what these squawkers would do if they were in charge. No need to wonder. Just look back to 1974, when Americans were being pummeled by price spikes that topped 12%, nearly double what we're enduring today. But by gollies, President Gerald Ford and his Republican contingent in Congress met the challenge head-on with a new magical program of economic uplift they called WIN, Whip Inflation Now. But it was nothing, just a political slogan with no magic and no action behind it. Price controls, antitrust action? No. GOP Inc. didn't want to offend, much less punish, corporate titans for a little profiteering. So they shifted the blame for inflation to consumers, demanding that families just say no to price gouging. Ford himself went on national TV, urging fellow citizens to join him in buying, quote, only those products and services priced at or below present levels. The core of the Republican program, then, was telling hard-hit wage earners to battle the monopolistic behemoths of big oil, big pharma, big food et al. On their own by simply refusing to pay inflated prices for the gasoline, medicines, groceries, and such that, they had to have. As a reward, everyone who signed a form promising to be an inflation fighter was sent a nifty win button indicating their patriotic participation. Sure enough, Americans responded enthusiastically with an avalanche of ridicule. Even Ford's top economic advisor was whopper-jawed by the GOP's idea that the substance of their policy was a political button. It was surreal. I said to myself, this is unbelievable stupidity.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1832. That was the day of the first recorded railroad accident in U.S. history. It took place near Quincy, Massachusetts. 4 people were thrown off a vacant car on the Granite Railway. They had been traveling to see how the train carried heavy loads. When a cable on a vacant car snapped on the return trip, it sent them over a 34-foot cliff. One of them died. The rest were injured. Why is this a labor history event? Safety. Both worker and passenger safety is a concern for railroads. As recently as 2012, members of the Railroad Workers United met in Chicago to discuss ways to strengthen their organization. One of the major issues they discussed was worker safety. One safety concern is single employee crews, where just one person is responsible for an entire train. A few years prior to this meeting, the Railroad Workers United called on its members to wear black shirts on the Friday before Father's Day to commemorate workers killed on the job. Unions throughout the railroad industry followed and adopted similar actions. In April of 2015, Alaska Congressional Representative Don Young introduced the Safe Freight Act. The bill prohibits the operation of a freight train or light locomotive engine used in the movement of freight unless it has a crew of at least 2 individuals. One must be certified by the Federal Rail Administration as a locomotive operator, and the other as a train conductor. From railroads' beginnings in this country in 1830, safety has always been an issue. Thanks to various railroad unions that have existed from the mid-1800s, workers have been able to push for safer working conditions. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 65 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of 107, though that could be a bit warmer here at the mothership proper. We will have sunny conditions throughout the day, and one of the reasons for it is that we do have a heat advisory an active heat advisory for the rest of the week, and we are expecting highs above 110 starting tomorrow. So sunny today with near record high temperatures, and winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with lows not quite as low as I would like it. It will be in the upper 60s, and winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Plentiful sunshine tomorrow. Record high temperatures expected with highs above 109. Winds out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County, updated at the end of last week, stands now at 481,020 people, and the deceased stands at 559. That was an increase of 4 from the previous number, and our hospitals are being overloaded, and the state is under a mask advisory, though I've never taken mine off. Grass pollen is rated moderate right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the Rogue River Valley region is good at 36 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is very high and has gone back up to level 9. Barometric pressure is rising at 29.91 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 79%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 74 degrees and mostly cloudy. Paris is 81 and sunny. Rome is 95 and fair. Kyiv is 75 degrees and partly cloudy. Kabul is 74 and partly cloudy. Hong Kong is 86 and fair. Tokyo is 82 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 53 and clear. San Francisco, California is 53 and cloudy with a bad air advisory because of smoke coming from the Oak Fire in Yosemite or near Yosemite. And New York, New York is 86 degrees Fahrenheit fair with their own heat advisory, so do take care. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Mari Yamaguchi of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Japan's nuclear regulator approved details of a planned release of treated radioactive wastewater from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear power plant into the sea next year. The approval by the authority will enable TEPCO, the Tokyo Electric Power Company, to start building necessary facilities ahead of the discharge. It came 2 months after a preliminary green light and a subsequent public review process. The contaminated water is being stored in about 1,000 tanks at the damaged plant. Officials say they must be removed so that facilities can be built for its decommissioning. The tanks are expected to reach their capacity of 1.37 million tons next year. TEPCO said it plans to transport treated and releasable water through a pipeline from the tanks to a coastal facility, where it will be diluted with seawater and then sent through an undersea tunnel with an outlet about a half a mile away to minimize the impact on local fishing and the environment. That's right, only a half mile away.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer. Mes automnes, quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Staff at the Associated Press bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. China yesterday, Sunday, launched one of 2 laboratory modules to complete its permanent orbiting space station. The Wenchun was launched from tropical Hainan Island with a large crowd of amateur photographers and space enthusiasts watching. A second lab module called the Mengtian is due to be launched in October, and both will join the Tiangong space station. 3 astronauts are already living in the core module and will oversee the arrival and docking of the lab. The 23-ton lab module is heavier than any other single-module spacecraft that is currently in space. China's space program launched its first astronaut into orbit in 2003, making it only the 3rd country to do so on its own, after the former Soviet Union and the United States. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théères, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.